Welcome to NEXTGames Elder Scrolls Online Dungeon Series. This video covering Arx Corinium on the Veteran difficulty. We're going to start by going over the gear setup I recommend for this, and then I'll show you Arx Corinium, the full run on the Veteran difficulty, with commentary and strategies for each of the bosses. To take on this dungeon, I'll be using my Inferno Dragon Knight, the oldest build that I have. In this build, we have two different sets that I'll be using during the dungeon. The one that I'll be using for the entire dungeon but the final boss is the set that you see right here. It consists of Head and Shoulders from the Slime Craws set, and then Mother's Sorrow is what we use for the rest of the body and armor pieces. Now in regards to our jewelry and weapons, we're using the Mad Tinkerer set. This ends up giving us a Magicka pool of around 29,000 and a health pool of around 18,000. Note the numbers that you see here listed are because I'm using a food that's currently boosting numbers by about 4,000 in both categories. Now this gear set, combined with the Ring of the Pale Order that I'm using, will make it so that this is plenty to get through all of the dungeon. However, it's not quite enough to get through the final boss of the Lamia Queen. For that, I switch to a hassle-free health setup that has me with over 41,000 health, and utilizes the Vampire Cloak and Warrior Poet gear sets for increased durability. Obviously, our DPS takes a substantial hit in this gear set, but our durability goes through the roof and it makes it a very hassle-free fight for the final boss. For food, we're using a Ghastly Eyeball for most of the run, or when we get to Medusa, we're going to switch that up for a Crowned Fortifying Meal for some extra durability. In regards to potions, we're using Essence of Spell Power with Medusa, and everything before that, we're just using our regular daily potions. Here we are at the start of the zone. Now in regards to the trash mobs for this zone, you mainly have two types. The Lamia, that you see here, and those are fairly easy to deal with, and they're usually accompanied with snakes, which have quite a bit more hit points and will take you slightly longer to take on. So I'll usually use AoE to take out the Lamia while I focus on the snake, and they'll all usually end up dying about the same time. Now the other mob type that you'll see often in this dungeon are those golems that you see in the distance there. Those can be extremely dangerous with their heavy attacks. Due to this, I'll normally just block the entire time while fighting them, and simply use my abilities to take them out. It's usually the safest bet as opposed to taking one of those heavy attacks, which is usually a one-shot kill. I also want to be sure it's clear that you should be taking out all the trash mobs and opening all the chests in the zone. In this zone in particular, I've gotten some of my best drops from chests and off regular mobs than I have from the bosses. I found this to be especially true with things like jewelry. Okay, watch me take out the rest of these trash mobs to get an idea of how it is I manage them in this dungeon, and I'll be talking again during the first boss here in just a few minutes. I'll also take this time to show you the 4 different armor sets that can drop in this dungeon. You'll see their different stats up there in the right hand corner.
Sarah? Big family, you have to know how to scrap. Be gone.
Here we are at the first boss of the dungeon, the Fanged Menace. Now as you'll see, it will start with a number of Lamia around him. You want to make sure to take out all of those Lamia first. The ultimate ability is usually a great way to do this if you have access to one that can do good amounts of AoE damage. Once you've dealt with all the Lamia, then you can go ahead and take on the main snake. While you're dealing with the Lamia, the main thing you want to be sure of is if the main snake goes into his coil attack, that you get out of the big red circle that is around him. Otherwise, he will drain your hit points quite quickly, and you risk dying at this early stage. Once all the adds are defeated, you now only need to contend with 3 main abilities for the rest of this fight. The first is the charge up heavy attack that you saw right there. Simply block this to deal with it. The next is the AoE poison attack that you're seeing designated by the red circle under the snake when he's all coiled up. During this phase, he will absorb the health of anyone in that red circle, and it will heal him quite quickly, so you want to make sure you get out of it as soon as you see it form. Now the next main attack he uses is a frontal conal attack that can do severe damage. You usually just want to sidestep this, and it's easy to avoid. Other than that, this fight should go fairly easy. It just takes a few minutes to get through all of the hit points since we're on the veteran difficulty. Enjoy the rest of the boss fight and the Trask mobs coming up to the next boss. We'll talk again then.
But now I'm going to.
Here we are at boss number 2. Ganakton the Tempest. Now this one is not overly difficult, but you do need to be quick on your feet and make sure you stay away from the front and the rear of him. He is a frontal conal lightning breath attack that you just saw him use that can definitely stun you for a period of time. He also has multiple AoE stun moves. Simply break free in order to get out of them. It usually only takes a second or two. Other than that, this fight is relatively straightforward. Just go ahead and break free whenever he stuns you, and get in your damage as quickly as you can. If you're using a companion, they will most frequently pull hate right at the beginning of this fight, and then die shortly thereafter. It's just kind of the way it goes. Okay, go ahead and enjoy the rest of this boss fight, everyone. We'll talk again at the beginning of the next.
Don't like your arms. Well, I met you. They're coming for us.
No prisoners.
Here we are on our third boss fight of the dungeon against Sliklenia the Songstress. Now, the mechanics of this one are actually quite simple. You want to attack the main boss only, and pretty much ignore her snake, as he's actually going to provide protection for you during her main attack. Now, when the fight first starts, go ahead and get in as much damage as you can, but after about 10 to 15 seconds, she's going to run off like you just saw her do there. I usually like to use my ultimate ability so it continues to do damage to her while she's there, and then you want to retreat to underneath this bubble that the snake creates while she sings. Otherwise, you'll be taking substantial damage outside of that bubble. Now, once the bubble goes away and she stops singing, just go back to your regular attacks. Note that she has a very powerful, heavy attack, so you want to make sure that you always block that or dodge it. Other than that, this fight is fairly straightforward. Just get in your damage during those periods of time when you can, and retreat to under the bubble when you need to. Having AoE abilities that you can actually leave in an area that will do damage while she's singing will be very helpful in this fight. That'll be it for this one. We'll talk again shortly for Boss 4. And here we are coming up to boss number 4, Matron Ixniaa. Now, Matron Ixniaa, like some of the others in this dungeon, starts with a bunch of adds that you're going to need to take care of at the start. Again, an ultimate ability or other AoE abilities are going to be the best way to take them out quickly. Now, the main boss can summon 2 red circles under you. One is very small and will do a good amount of damage and normally knock you down, not allowing you to get in more damage or to cure yourself, which is very dangerous. And the larger one just does small amounts of damage, so you don't have to worry too much about avoiding that one. So after you deal with all the adds at the start of this run, you then just want to continue to get in as much damage as you can to the Matron while staying outside of that smaller circle, as she will continually summon it. Additionally, after you've taken out all of the adds, there'll usually be one left with a high amount of hit points that is usually a shadow of hers. I usually choose to completely ignore this one, as it actually has similar hit points to what she has. I instead just focus on her, and if some of my AoE abilities happen to damage the other one, that's fine, but my main focus is getting the main Matron taken out, and your fight will end. That's going to be it for how to take on the Matron. We'll talk again for Boss 5. Here we are at the 5th and final boss before taking on the Lamia Queen, the Ancient Lurcher. Now the Ancient Lurcher, like many others, will start off with a bunch of ads around them that you'll need to take care of first. Again, an ultimate ability or AoE abilities will take care of them quite quickly. Then you want to focus on the Lurcher, which, like many of the other golems in this dungeon, can easily take you out with a single one of his heavy attacks. Therefore, like most of the golems in the rest of the dungeon, I choose to block for a good percentage of this run just to make sure he doesn't sneak in one of those attacks, while using my abilities to completely deplete his hit point pool. It does take you an extra minute or two to do it using this strategy, but it's much safer. When the red circle appears underneath him, you're going to want to make sure that you get out of the range of it, and he does get stronger under 50% hit points, so make sure to watch out for that and be especially careful. Okay, we'll talk again for the final boss of the dungeon, the Lamia Queen.
Too often.
Here we are coming to the final boss of the dungeon, Sellistrix, the Lamia Queen, and she's definitely the most challenging boss in this dungeon, which is of course why we had to use a special gear set and food just to take this one on. Now as you can see, our health is boosted to 41,500 hit points, and we still have a magic pool of almost 27,000. Let's next talk about her abilities, as it's definitely what makes this a challenging fight. The first thing is, if you see right now, she is electrocuting the sky and the water. If you are in that water right now, you would die by taking 30 to 50,000 damage. Therefore, it's just not a safe place to be for any part of this run. That's why you see me standing on this island for the entire run. Next, she will make rocks rain from the ceiling, which does do good amounts of AoE damage, but as long as you're curing yourself through it, it's definitely not overly challenging to deal with. The most challenging thing, though, is that scream attack that you just saw her do, and that she'll use twice as often as all of her other abilities. That attack alone will almost always do 30,000 damage to you if you're caught within its gaze. Now, you can oftentimes dodge this attack, as you can plan for when it occurs. However, this is such a long fight that all it takes is just one time of you missing that dodge and your fight is over. That's why I choose to go with this high health build, and therefore I can just stand in the middle of all these abilities, continuing to do damage, and I'm really at no point in any danger. Now I do want to point out that you do need to have a Ring of the Pale Order in order for this to work, as it's the damage that we're continually doing, along with our own cures, that are keeping us alive. This does make for a fairly slow final boss kill of usually about 15 minutes, but again, this is on the veteran difficulty, and it gets you that helmet that you might be after that you can't obtain on the normal difficulty. Go ahead and watch the rest of this run. In the first 50% of this boss kill, I go ahead and just stand right in the middle of all the abilities to show you what that looks like and that this build can just kind of take it all to the face and it doesn't matter. And then for the last half of the run, I dodged the vast majority of these scream moves, showing you that it is possible to do, but that it's also extremely difficult to do it with 100% accuracy, which is what you would need in order to actually get past this run without being one-shotted by that ability. Enjoy the rest of this boss run, and we'll talk again at the end. That'll be it for taking on Arx Corinium on the Veteran difficulty. I hope you found that helpful. Look for more normal and Veteran dungeon solos from me in the near future. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy out there.